Today I'm going to be showing you how I made these accessories for my Jubilee cosplay out of shrink plastic. Let's talk materials first. I recommend using shrink plastic that is Shrinky Dinks brand. Why? Because not all shrink plastic is created equal. I did buy multiple brands of shrink plastic, but ultimately the one with the best results is Shrinky Dinks brand. Some of the off-brand ones I tried, they shrunk inconsistently. So for example, they shrunk a lot this way, not so much this way. So the designs that I had cut out were elongated. And if you're trying to get a specific shape like a circle, that is not going to work. So I had the most consistent results with this Shrinky Dinks brand plastic. I recommend paint pens, acrylic paint pens specifically, or Sharpies. They are going to get you the best results. This is optional, but this is the method I use. I use a heat gun to shrink the plastic because I think it's better than having to turn on an oven when it's the middle of summer and like 90 degrees. You can use an oven, just follow the instructions on the Shrinky Dinks package material. If you are making earrings or like a necklace charm or something like that, something that needs a hole to be able to string something through, standard hole punch is fine. When it shrinks, it will be the perfect size for like a jump ring or a string. Painter's tape, I use it when I am sealing the back of the Shrinky Dink. I put this on the front and then I flip it over so that I can spray paint the back without damaging the front of the Shrinky Dink. This is Mod Podge and it's called Dimensional Magic. This is probably the easiest method. It's pretty non-toxic, like you can use it indoors. I do like the Krylon clear glaze. However, I do notice that it does sometimes eat away at my materials, so I recommend first using the Krylon Workable Fixatif. So I would do 1 or 2 coats of this and then follow it up with the clear glaze, and that has given me the most consistent results. I also want to make a note, when you are using these materials, please do it outside. You do not want to harm yourself with toxic chemicals because these are not good to breathe in. Other optional materials, if you're going to make earrings, then you can buy some earring backs from a craft store or online. If you are going to be making a pin, for example, I made this pin which is going to go on my shirt for my Jubilee cosplay. I attached a pin backing here. And I used E6000 to attach it. This is really good for attaching like metal items and things like that. But just fair warning, this is toxic. Please use it in a well-ventilated area, preferably outside. If you're using a heat gun, I also recommend having some kind of heat-safe surface on which to heat up the Shrinky Dink. I also recommend having parchment paper on hand so that you can sandwich the Shrinky Dink in between there and kind of lay something on top so that your Shrinky Dink is going to be flat as it cools down. Lastly, you're going to need some kind of cutting machine and cutting materials. So for me, I use a Cricut machine and I have a 12x12 regular grip sticky mat, and that works fine for me. And I also have and recommend a fine point blade for the Cricut machine. Let's talk Cricut settings. After I upload my image into Design Space, I need to adjust the size to make sure that when it shrinks, it will be the size I need. For this project, I am aiming to achieve a charm size that will be about 1.5 inches in diameter. To achieve that size after shrinking, I calculated that using the Shrinky Dinks brand plastic, I needed my image to be about 3.6 inches in diameter. After resizing my image, I then duplicated it so that Cricut will cut the design twice. Next, select both of the layers. Next, find the Align button. This will be at the bottom of the screen if you're using the iPad app. With both designs selected, center them both horizontally and vertically. With both layers still selected, go to the bottom left-hand side of your screen and find the Action button. After opening that menu, find the Attach button and click that. This will essentially paperclip your layers together. Functionally, this ensures that your layers stay stacked exactly on top of each other when you go to cut the design. We want Cricut to cut the design twice to ensure that the blade goes all the way through the plastic. Now we can go ahead and start the cut. Press the Make It button, select your mat size. Next, then center your image wherever you have your Shrinky Dink plastic placed. Hit Next, and select your machine. On the Set Material screen, select Acetate. This will ensure that the blade cuts deep enough, and additionally, this setting cuts the material twice. Because we had already duplicated our image, that means that not only will it cut twice, but it will cut a total of 4 times. 2 for the first image, 2 for the second image, so 4 times total. Next, adjust the pressure settings. It will be set to default, so we want to change that to more. Lastly, make sure that you are using the fine point blade. I know it sounds counterintuitive and you might want to use the deep cut blade, but don't do it. Use the fine point blade. Okay, I have my machine set up. I have my Shrinky Dink plastic loaded onto my mat. So I'm going to go ahead and start. This looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and start to peel it off. There we go. Look, you can see how easy that came off. That's it. That's the cutout. Look how clean that is. The next steps are going to be to cut the hole where we're going to hang the necklace. This is going to be a necklace, so I'm going to go ahead and just eyeball that here. Okay, so now I have a little hole in it. Now, the next thing I want to do is get my acrylic paint pen, and then I'm going to start coloring. Might have to do like a couple coats to get really good coverage, but keep in mind that as the Shrinky Dink shrinks, the color that you see is going to become a lot more vibrant because all of this is going to shrink down. All done. So now we get to the fun part. So first thing I have is a little heat protection mat. I have sandwiched in between some parchment. So once this is done shrinking down, I can go ahead and transfer it here, sandwich it to kind of help it stay flat. You can also use like a toothpick or something if you have a toothpick to kind of help keep it from flying away. One thing I will note, it looks scary because at a certain point, it's going to start curling and it looks like it's curling into itself. Don't worry, just keep going. Just keep going until it lays flat. It will, I promise. The heat gun is kind of loud, so I've gone ahead and muted this part. However, I wanted to keep this in real time so that you can see exactly how long it takes and what my process looks like. Generally, I start by working in circles around the entire cutout, trying to get it to heat evenly. But because this is so big and the heat gun is so small, certain parts are going to shrink before others. And here's where it gets kind of scary because it does look like it's curling in on itself and you might get scared that it's going to all stick to each other. It's not. It will not stick to each other. So just keep heating it. It's going to get smaller, and as it gets smaller, it will start to actually flatten out. Once it's small enough, I do also like to flip it over and heat it from the back side just to make sure that I've heated everything to the full extent and to make sure that it shrunk completely. Once it looks like it's fully shrunk and the material is starting to lay pretty much flat, I can go ahead and transfer it over to the parchment paper and sandwich it in between there just to make extra sure that the plastic isn't going to get warped. So now this is what we end up with. Hopefully you can see that there. We are going to finish the back so that the paint isn't going to chip off. So the shiny side, this is the front side. We don't need to do anything with that. The more matte side, that's the side we painted. So that's what we want to finish so that the acrylic pen will not flake off. So I'm going to go put it paint side down. I'm going to come in with some painter's tape and apply that to the front, which is going to be the shiny side. And that way, after you are done spraying and it's dried and everything, you just peel it off and this part will have been protected because you don't want it to get stuck to your newspaper or whatever you're spraying on. Once you have your tape applied to the shiny side, you're going to apply the fixative. Go ahead and spray one good spray. Wait 15 minutes and spray it again. That will make sure that your gloss doesn't start to like eat into the paint and make it smudge or bleed. Now, let it dry for an hour. Then we're going to go in with the clear glaze. This is already really thick, so be light-handed when applying. Now, you're going to go in one good spray, wait about 2 or 3 minutes, then spray it again, and that will ensure that you get a really nice glossy coat. Now let it dry a minimum of 24 hours before you even think about touching it. So once you've done all that, you should get a beautiful charm or pendant that you can put on a necklace. You can make them into earrings and do whatever you want. Because this stuff is hard to use if you don't have a well-ventilated space or outdoor area, an alternative, you can try using this Mod Podge Dimensional Magic. These are my results from using the Mod Podge Dimensional Magic. There are some bubbles that formed while it was drying, even though I made sure that there were no bubbles when I applied it. But maybe with some practice, I can avoid those. I still think the results are pretty good, especially since this is just going to be on the back side of the necklace, so it's not really going to be visible. That is my tutorial on how to use Shrinky Dinks to make cosplay accessories. There are so many possibilities when it comes to Shrinky Dinks, and I am super happy that I found this method because, you know, I was just lamenting the fact that I don't have a 3D printer and I really wanted an alternative way to make earrings and little charms and things for my cosplays. And it just randomly popped into my head, Shrinky Dinks. And it is so fantastic, especially when you have a cutting machine. But that is the great thing, is that you don't even need a cutting machine. I have done these by hand as well. I, just use scissors and a craft knife to just cut things out. So that's also an option. And I'm just really excited about this possibility, looking forward to seeing what other things I can make in the future for cosplays. Any questions, comments, thoughts about the video, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.